Welcome, fellow travelers. It's Mickey Gold. So, I've noticed, and I don't know if you have too, that some days it seems like and it feels like everybody's at each other's throats and the world just seems mad. There's a rise, it seems, of hate groups of all sorts, and there's just rise of hate in groups of all sorts. And what I have been thinking about, I've discussed the hindbrain in a video about anxiety, but when I started really thinking about it, our hindbrain, our reptilian brain, is just there to make sure that the head through the torso survive, because that's what we need to actually survive. We can do without arms, legs, extra parts, but this is what it sends the energy out to. So when we're in hindbrain mode, it's all those flight or fight chemicals. This is not a place to grow a healthy, strong body out of. This is not a place to grow a healthy, strong mind. If you leave this on and it's on all the time, you risk disease in the body and disease in the mind. And you feel pretty unhappy. So maybe disease spirit, as we could mark it up to that as well. So the thing with the hindbrain, besides just survival mode, it also shows us how to discriminate. And this was important, for instance, when we had just small tribes of humans roaming the earth, when there wasn't lots of us. And what you needed to be able to do was to be able to differentiate between one tribe and another. It might be bone structure, it might be skin pigmentation that told you they were not part of your tribe. And we still have that part of our hindbrain. And if we, for instance, grew up in a culture that's really important to preserve your culture, for instance, there's certain cultures that you shouldn't marry outside of your culture. They don't want, there's certain cultures, whether it be, a ethnic group or whether it be religious group, that you want to stay inside this box, and to leave that box would be a threat. It's a threat to the physical existence of either the culture, or would be it the ethnic group, because there are some groups that really they thrive on the ideal of racial purity. There's groups that you have to follow religious purity. There's groups that, just you name it. You have to be that, otherwise it threatens the whole structure of the group. And you know what that feels like? That feels like when we are threatening the structure of the body. And guess what? That hindbrain pops on. So you have a group, instead of just one person with their hindbrain turned on, you have a whole group with this mentality, with this turned on, when this is not really, yes, your family may no longer be perfectly pure in a tribe. However, this thought process stifles us. We need to be able to expand and grow. And sometimes expanding and growing can make us trigger the hindbrain. Because again, if I branch out and say I marry outside my culture, be that race, be that religion, I am threatening both those groups of possibly completely dismantling their group, because they think this is the only way to survive. So this kicks in. So we have that going on. And then we also, some of us have carried over that hindbrain, you're not like me. Again, it could be, in bias of skin pigmentation. It can be in bias, again, of religious groups. It can be in bias of ethnic groups. Because, again, our primitive self is really, when it comes down to it, survival is based on being somebody in the tribe, being in your own tribe. You're only safe there. However, that is not modern day society. We can see examples of this, for instance, and I'm not trying to pick on a religion, but the Roman Catholic Church during the times of the Inquisition. If you did not want to be Catholic, then you just asked to die. Also, there was times when, for instance, if you believed that the earth rotated around the sun, orbited around the sun, you could be put either to death or jailed or banished or excommunicated, which if you're not religious, what the thing with being excommunicated would be the fact that you know, as somebody who's religious, that your physical body is temporary. However, your soul is supposed to be immortal. And so, for instance, being excommunicated would be damning yourself to eternal hell or eternal damnation, and where you would have no way back if one believes in that. So that's why that's such a big triggering thing, because you think your physical body just in this one lifetime is bad enough to suffer, but eternity, I mean, that's even mind-boggling if you believe in that stuff. So that hindbrain's going to kick on. So what happens is right now we are experiencing, as the whole entire planet is experiencing, actually, not just in America, the world is experiencing us growing and changing. Technology is advancing. So again, it's harder to stay in those boxes. It's harder to be the ego anymore. It's harder to describe myself as my skin pigmentation. It's harder to describe myself as my religious beliefs. It's harder to describe myself just as my sexual orientation or just as my ethnicity, whatever the case may be, because now we're being expanded. We no longer, borders are fine. However, you don't have to do now, after quarantine, you don't have to go out to do your job. You could be living on the West Coast and doing business in Japan. You could be doing anything you want. You're not limited by the area around you. For instance, you could go live somewhere where the housing's super cheap and you just love the area and there's no jobs, but that's okay, because as long as you have Wi-Fi or internet connection, you can do your job. And just for a moment, thinking about how that would make one feel if one were, for instance, retired, or one were like, I don't know how to do my job for a distance, or I can't do my job from a distance, or technology, whatever this case may be, that might feel really like triggering your hindbrain. We're seeing people change. We're seeing all sorts of things in our society change. We have become, I remember when you would never see something as innocent as interracial kissing on a show, when that would have been, oh, now you see everybody's all different cultures, mixes. You see straight, you see gay, there's trans, there's everything you can think of. And again, if you are in one of these cultures, or if you're in a religion that has this certain, this box that everything needs to fit into, and it's this way, and that's the only way, that's going to challenge that hindbrain. That's going to set off like fear of death, because it is in some ways the end of certain things. It's the end of oppression for some people. And there's that saying that for the people who have never been oppressed, when the people who are oppressed get their equality, and of course I'm not saying this correctly, when they get their equality, it may feel like to the people who've always had that, when those other people are equal, it's going to feel like oppression. Because, for instance, if you felt superior to somebody your whole entire life, and that's your whole identity, is I'm superior to this person, or this race, or this religion, or whatever it might be, and then all of a sudden they're elevated right next to you and they're equal, and they're not asking for anything special, you're just getting the same thing you are, it can feel like you are being oppressed if you've never known anything but that. It might, you just lost, and now all of a sudden this person that I was looking down on is now equal to me. That would feel like sort of threatening, in that I could see how that hindbrain would go off. The other thing to notice, the other thing to think about is that when we have people who come at us with hate for whatever we are, if you're gay, if you're this, if you're that, whatever group you belong to, if you have people coming at you and it seems super hateful or just a certain group, it's because of the fact this is going off. They're living in fear. The other thing that would be helpful to remember in those moments is that, honestly, if we looked at things, if we had the same experience and the same belief as someone else did, we might act that way as well. It's really easy to sit in this position and go, you're acting like a fool. However, sitting in that seat when that hindbrain's going off and the chemicals are dumping through your body, or you've lived your whole life like that, what's going to feel horrible is, just being what people might consider civil. Because when we are in that hindbrain mode, when we are in that fight or flight, we are not civil. That is not where we are as people. So here's the deal. It might feel scary. It might feel like everything's on fire. It might feel hateful out there. One thing to remember, that if someone's pointing their fingers at you, they have 3 fingers pointing back. So if you're feeling attacked by someone, know that those one finger's pointing at you, but the 3 other ones are pointing back at them. The other thing to remember too is that you know when that kicks in, because we're never fully evolved. Enlightenment is never a static thing. So we all slip in and out of that hindbrain. Your hindbrain might react on certain things and not on other things. And there might be some things that are realistic, and it should be, like I said, the smell of fire should make that kick in. However, a fire in the fireplace, in a proper maintained fireplace, should not make that kick in, because that's going to be too much on your system. Or just change. And remember that survival of the fittest is not about having the brute strength to take whatever you see fit. Survival of the fittest is the ability to adapt and change and grow and not dwell on what's different. If you got to dwell on something in this time, think about how we have advanced in so many ways. And what I want you to think about is what's better. What's better now? Don't think about, yes, there might be moments where we grieve what we've lost and what's changed and what's gone before. But if you can, this will make your life so much beautiful, so much gentler, as if for just one moment we can think about what we've gained. What's better than we've done before? Because you'll always find something. And what you'll find is when you can just let go, when you can take and release that button, release that hindbrain, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through yoga, whether it be for finding some group that is about building rather than pointing and oppressing. When you can find your tribe without the identifying pigment, when you can find your tribe by your heart center, then it'll be okay. And you know what? I really believe, fellow travelers, that it's going to be okay. Because you know why? Because I see you guys tune in. And the positive feedback I get, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that you listen to this stuff. And I appreciate that we're keeping hope alive. And that no matter how cloudy, how much fear and everything going on there, it can be really easy to get caught up. But I appreciate that you're taking a moment, you're thinking about it, you're breathing, you're doing your very best. And I hope you're feeling good. Peace, love, namaste.